Cool. All right, so I want to go over vocab with you real quick. Just 4 terms today. Three. That's it. Just 3. Okay, just 3 terms, and then we'll get to the industrial giants. Okay, these robber barons I wanted to talk about. So the first one is 16th Amendment. 16th Amendment. Does anybody know this one here? Go ahead, Austin.
Ban monopolies?
Nope. Nope. 16th Amendment. That goes along with that. Anybody know the 16th Amendment? So when you get a paycheck, some people get really, really angry when these get taken out. Yeah, so income tax, right? So this is income tax. Good. All right, so the 16th Amendment, federal income tax. So they can help support different types of organizations and help any type of person in need, social organizations. Okay, this might go towards roadways, bridges, things like that. Okay, to try to help provide public services, our military, so on and so forth. So 16th Amendment, federal income tax. Obviously this gets levied, or this might be different. This might change depending on what president comes in. It might be increased, it might be decreased depending on their ideas on economics. So with the federal income tax, with President Trump, he reduced it. What are they likely to do with that extra pay? Austin? Spend it, yeah. Spend in the economy. Hopefully that will boost the economy, right? There's different perceptions of if this is good or not, to raise it or lower it, but in many cases, a lot of the American people enjoy to see those cut down a little bit so we get more pay in our paycheck. Okay, good. Federal Reserve Act. What is the Federal Reserve Act? What do we think? Federal Reserve Act. So this is a way to try to have government step in and make sure that things are running smoothly with banking. Okay, so this was the formation of a central bank. The central bank. So this was almost like an authority to regulate, set standards for banking to make sure people's funds were never lost, okay? And this was a way to try to regulate the dollar. So in case of inflation, in case of a stock market crash, right, and in case of any type of hardships, the central bank can try to regulate certain items, prices on goods, things like that. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. And finally, Rough Riders. The Rough Riders. We're going to talk about this more next chapter. Progressive era and America becoming a world power, and even World War I, are all kind of like right around the same time period. So a lot of these vocab terms will pop up in the next chapter. But what is the Rough Riders? Rough Riders. And you're looking at the right spot, Austin. He's a big one right there. Austin, you know, Rough Riders? So this was a cavalry group during the Spanish-American War. Cavalry group in the Spanish-American War. And guess who led it? Who is it, Austin? Yep, Teddy Roosevelt. Good job. Teddy Roosevelt. Good. Is there any questions on the vocab? We good? Like I said, next chapter we're going to talk about the Rough Riders a little bit more. Okay, a little bit more. See if we're presenting yet. Good. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the robber barons and these industrial giants. Find it. There it is. So the robber barons, again, that activity is due tomorrow at the start of class. So don't worry about getting it done by the end. It's already set for tomorrow at the start of class. If you don't have it turned in by that time, I'm sorry, there's not much I can do. All right, but the leaders of industry, the robber barons, we talked about muckrakers, right? We talked about progressives. I think we have that down pat. But we need to learn a little bit about what was going on in America to see this type of movement happen. All right, we need to understand why the progressive era is being pushed. Okay, why these people are trying to fight for the middle class, the lower class, right? What issues were emerging that pushed for these muckrakers to do the work that they were doing? All right, so the leaders of this industrial age, we have Andrew Carnegie. All right, we mentioned him, we talked about him a little bit already this year, but that video, the Bessemer process, really talked about Andrew Carnegie and his steel production. Okay, we had J.P. Morgan, financial broker. This man was very smart with finances, buying stocks in different companies to a point where he owned over 70% of the companies in America during the time of the early 1900s, late 1800s. He was very smart with his buying and selling of stocks. John D. Rockefeller, oil, Standard Oil, natural gas, okay? Everything's run off oil and gas. So if you're monopolizing this industry, this business, you're going to be set for life, and your grandkids, and your great-grandkids, and so on and so forth. This man was loaded out of his mind. All these people were. Cornelius Vanderbilt. Pretty cool name, Cornelius. But Vanderbilt, all right? So he was very influential with the railroad system in the United States, connecting all these cities, all these urban areas together. Not only that, but the rural areas, where we're going to get these resources to fuel our factories and our industries, okay? You guys ever hear of Vanderbilt University? Yeah, it's named after him, okay? Named after him. And their mascot's called the Commodores for a reason, right? Because of trains and his railroad system. All right, first person, Andrew Carnegie. Really famous for the Bessemer process, the steel industry. And what city? What city in America? Austin? Pittsburgh, yep, good job. Why Pittsburgh? Why did you design it in Pittsburgh? Go ahead, Austin. Awesome, good job. So Three Rivers, all right? There's at one point the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers stadium, it was called Three Rivers Stadium. That's where all these three rivers came and met, right? And that was great for transportation. All these major cities are located by waterways, waterfronts, to make sure that they can transport these items at a fast and efficient way. Okay, Pittsburgh designed perfectly on these three rivers. Down to New Orleans. If we wanted to, we can go all the way up into the Great Lakes. We can connect and maybe go out even further into the West and expand our influence in these areas. So Andrew Carnegie, Scots-Irish immigrant. So this man was very famous for making a name for himself. He brought this Bessemer process that was occurring in Europe, that first wave of industrial revolution, right? And he brought it to the United States, hoping to expand it and really create a business no one could even compete with, second to none. All right, we'll see the United States become the leading provider of steel through this time, especially when we get to World War I and World War II. No one can compare to our production. And a lot of that has to do with Andrew Carnegie. All right, his company, Carnegie Steel. All right, it was made up of more steel than any other company in the United States. It came to a point where he decided, I'm going to buy up all the other steel companies, these smaller organizations. So he's a sole provider of steel throughout the United States and eventually even pretty much the world, where he dominated over double the amount the world was producing at the time, which again is going to help us a lot through our industrial age and when it comes to wartime. So he created a monopoly. Very famous for doing that with the steel industry. Another steel company in Allentown, that's not too far from here. It's located right now at Sands Casino. They made a casino there with the old steel mill, which is pretty cool. You ever hear the one song, Allentown, sitting here in Allentown? No? No? Oh my gosh. I'll have to play that for you guys then. But Andrew Carnegie, he was considered a robber baron because he monopolized these industries. He took a lot of jobs from people, took away their small business. But at the same time, because he wanted to try to give back to the city and start these social organizations and these museums, schools, forms of education for the people in Pittsburgh, he gave back all his money to the city. Is anybody ever in Pittsburgh? Yeah, it's a very clean, nice city, and so be it because of Andrew Carnegie. He donated all his money, all his riches to the city to try to inspire social reforms and try to inspire education for everybody in the city and the surrounding areas. Okay, if you go to Pittsburgh, you'll see his name everywhere, on roads, on bridges, like I said, colleges, universities, schools, museums, if I didn't mention already, parks, okay, because all his money was donated to the city. Interesting fact about him, his kids were very, very angry with him. Why do you think? You think he gave him a penny? No, he goes, I'm today, right? And then we know that America, Pittsburgh, Steel City, all right, how it can produce all this different materials at a fast, alarming rate. He didn't give a cent back to his kids. He's like, you make a name for yourself like I did. I'm not giving you a cent. Which if I was his kid, it's like, really? You couldn't give me like $1 million? Like, that's nothing to you at the time. But hey, it is what it is. I think he had a good method of why he did that. And not only was the steel production beneficial for, obviously, his company, but the United States as a whole. The railroad system, connecting all these cities together, skyscrapers. Eventually, when we get to war, military equipment, all right, automobiles, you name it. Everything was made out of steel. J.P. Morgan, another robber baron, banking and finance. This man was very famous for buying stocks in different assortments and businesses and really expanding his wealth across the United States and purchasing these stocks in different businesses. The more stocks you have, the more ownership you have in that certain business. And this is why he became very, very famous. And guess what he decided to buy out with all his wealth? Carnegie Steel, and he made it U.S. Steel. All right, so eventually in 1903, he bought Carnegie Steel, and he made it U.S. Steel, which is the world's largest business. Okay. So this man was very, very rich to the point where he bought the steel company from Carnegie. Right? And he purchased it from Carnegie, making it his monopoly right now. Okay, well, his monopoly at the time. So J.P. Morgan, finances, buying stocks, okay, ownership of businesses, very wealthy. All right, next one. You guys good? Am I moving too fast? Just let me know. Next robber baron, John D. Rockefeller. So we talked a little bit about him with Ida Tarbell. She wrote her muckraker articles about his monopoly, his trust controlling a lot of the oil and natural gas companies in America. But oil industry, okay, controlled 90% of the U.S. oil production. To a point when you think of the production in the United States, Rockefeller has his hands in it, some shape or form. Right? He bought up a lot of these oil and natural gas industries before they could even get started. Right? He was that rich. He was that powerful of a man. Let's face it, everything runs off natural gas and oil. And nowadays, we're trying to find renewable resources like windmills, solar power, okay, maybe even nuclear power. But for the most part, oil, natural gas is in a hot demand. Right? And it comes to a point where a lot of the wars that were being fought was over this resource alone. And very helpful for the United States fighting in these wars. Okay, the Middle East. Obviously, even in World War II, World War I, a lot of these countries are fighting over oil and natural gas. United States, well, guess what? We have our own. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. We can support and provide for our country fighting in these wars because we have it already. That's why I say the United States is really ideal as a country because we have all the resources we need. We have all the manufacturing and industries we need. Okay. Also, we're surrounded by water, oceans. It's our greatest defense against other foreign countries. So realistically, when you want to pick a country in the world to live at, the United States is pretty darn good. Right? and stayed here with Rockefeller, controlling this oil and natural gas industry to a point where we became so dominant and powerful that no other country could compare. All right, so he formed trusts, okay, which is pretty much like a monopoly. He controlled over these businesses as an overarching authority. Okay, he was controlling these other businesses by, through this trust to a point where he had full control of the oil and natural gas being shipped and being imported to the United States. Not really imported too much, but for the most part, exported to other countries. And his company, Standard Oil. Standard Oil. You guys good with that? Matt, you good? Okay. Last robber baron we're going to talk about today is Cornelius Vanderbilt. Pretty cool name, right? Cornelius Vanderbilt. His claim to fame, railroads. How we're trying to tie all these resources back to the industries. We need a way of transportation, right? We need to try to connect our resources back to the factories to make these finalized goods. And eventually, yeah, we can transport people from one place to another. No problem, no issues. If there was ever an attack on American soil, the railroad system will help and benefit us to get military equipment, supplies from one area to another, quick and fast. Okay. So Cornelius Vanderbilt connecting the Midwest to the East. So this is where we see the development of Chicago, okay, Detroit. Yeah, they're aligned alongside the Great Lakes, but for the most part, these items are being shipped and sent to these cities by railroads, okay? Connecting all the way down to Tennessee, right, the South, and the far West. The Transcontinental Railroad, right? So Cornelius Vanderbilt is robber baron, control a monopoly over this business to a point where no other company could compete with his transportation system, his railroad system, his business, and he was buying up the competitors. So with all these robber barons here, real quick, guys, which is going to the progressive era, if they monopolize all these industries in oil, in steel, in transportation, okay, if they control the businesses by buying stocks, what happens then? What happens to the competitors, the small businesses? Do they have a chance? No, they don't. Okay, they don't. So there's no competition amongst these bigger companies, these bigger corporations. So what can they do with the price then? Austin?
Whatever they want.
Yeah, whatever they want, right? There's no one to try to keep them in line, to set it at a lower price, to challenge their goods, their finalized goods and prices, right? So when I'm going to shop for something, I'm looking at the price. I'm looking at what I can get for cheaper. Okay, but at this time with monopolies, they can't do that. Okay, these robber barons are setting the price to whatever they want. Paying workers. Do you think they paid them real well? No, they're trying to gather as much profit as possible. Do you think they offer their workers health insurance? No. Do you think they gave them sick days or vacation days? No, not at all. And this is some of the issues and problems these muckrakers, these progressives are trying to bring about with this industrial age, the Gilded Age. Okay, that's what they call it. And these robber barons, that's why they call them robber barons. All right, but do you think the United States would be where it's at without these industrial giants? Probably not, okay? Probably not. We wouldn't have the steel corporation that Carnegie created. We wouldn't have Standard Oil and natural gas that Rockefeller helped develop, okay? We wouldn't have the transportation systems like we know today without Cornelius Vanderbilt. So yeah, they offered benefits, but at the same time, there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of problems that were emerging because of these industrial giants. And that's why they give them the name robber barons. Okay, that's why the progressive era kind of puts a bad picture, paints a bad picture for these men. But Carnegie, he did a great job of donating all of his money back to the city of Pittsburgh and helping and providing for those people. All right, is there any questions on that, guys? Anything at all? Okay, that's all I got for today. So remember, Friday, your muckraker project. Okay, and tomorrow, make sure that you have that robber barons activity finished and completed. Okay. That's due at the start of class tomorrow.